All right, welcome everybody. We got a special treat today. This is going to be Mitch Burman Birchman. That's actually
Bircham.
Bircham, Mitch
Bircham.
Bircham, and his company's MetWatt. We're going to talk about some really entertaining subjects today, including start with his story, his company, what he's speculating on, what's going to happen to the price of Bitcoin, some of the predictions that he's got that are coming up on through his game theory analysis about what could be going on exactly in the court case and how it's all related to things. And then we're going to go a little bit more into the Mandela upgrade with the Bitcoin network on the tail end of this, and really like overall strategy. This is going to be an entertaining call. I'll tell you that right from the bottom. So stay to the end. We're going to go with podcast style. This is Gavin Gregory coming at you, Gavin Mehl, and we'll go ahead and get started. So Mitch, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Weather's beautiful. Coming up on Independence Day.
Well, we're so glad to have you, man. It's really appreciate it. And now I've got you as binary on the screen. So we are that must be one of your companies, it sounds like. So why don't you just start with your story? You know, who's Mitch Birchman? You know, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What are you up to? And tell us more about yourself.
So yeah, I'm a college dropout. You know, standing on the shoulders of giants. I got acquainted with Bitcoin, and as I started to move through my different careers, I was working as a ski instructor, and I started selling solar panels, trying to get some stuff done. And all the while I was just looking at these new digital currencies, just thinking to myself, what's the real power of this stuff? What can this really do? And I ended up thinking that I wasn't going to be the best engineer in the world. I dropped out of engineering school 3 years ago now, and I was never going to be the best engineer in the room. But what I could do was design feedback loops that brought about a more prosperous society. I was obsessed with building better infrastructure. That's why I got into solar energy. That's why I started looking into ways to protect the environment. As a skier, I don't want winter to go away. Some people don't like it. I know you're out in California, but I love the winter still. I want to see how we can design society so that everyone's working together for a better common goal. And that's where my company Binary Distributed Technologies came out of. I see Bitcoin as the tool to bring about this change, and that's where I'm focusing my energy, and that's where I'm going to spend probably the rest of my life is designing these games that we're going to be able to play with an open rule book.
So before we go into how you believe Bitcoin is going to do that, so go take me back a little bit to where you're working solar. Were you knocking on doors selling solar?
Knocking doors, selling solar. And I started to realize that solar is a great product. I think it's easy to sell, but I was looking for it to actually solve problems with grid infrastructure. It's really, I actually ended up with the National EMP Task Force in the United States, the Colorado division. And I started talking with the guys on this team, and I was so taken aback by just how fragile the electric grid infrastructure in the United States, and really the whole world, but the United States specifically. And I was searching for ways to improve it, right? And I started selling solar panels thinking that was the way forward, but it's not. We need something that can tie together a lot of stranded networks. We've got something.
Basically, you're saying somehow bridge these networks, and
we gotta bridge
MetaWatt fits into things, where it's the energy network, right? That's the energy stuff, energy networks.
That's right. So when I was selling solar panels, I was starting to realize that I wasn't solving the problem that I set out to solve. And I was making a little bit of money here and there, and maybe people saved some money, but ultimately I was looking to make the grid more resilient and bring about a more sustainable future where power is abundant, people can do business cheaply and build what they want on the land. And I was selling these panels and it wasn't solving those problems. In fact, it was making it worse. We try to plug in all these solar panels and all these distributed energy, resources, whether it's EVs or wind power, and we've got this distributed and sort of, for lack of a better term, volatile energy being put into the grid that we don't have a system of account for. We can't track it. We can't automate it.
We can't audit when they say, hey, you're using too much energy, the neighbor's using more, whatever.
Exactly. We've got this supply and demand that's just, we've got the supply and demand teeter totter and it's going freaking nuts. It looks like a roller coaster. We're trying to build all these new things and we're trying to go green and all these different things. But each time we add something to the layer, it all gets more complicated because we don't have something that can take on the amount of data that's necessary to first of all view, second of all transact, and then third of all log and have an audit record, to be able to know exactly what's going on the grid so that we can place strategic infrastructure for a more resilient electric grid and more resilient communities. And that's really what I was after.
So it seems like Bitcoin may fit into this somehow, and it may have somehow. So take me back into your story with that. What were you looking at? How did you find out about crypto? Did you hear about one of the other cryptocurrencies first? What was the introduction?
It was all about proof of work that brought me in. I saw these computers that were, just burning energy, and I was like, this can't be good. From my limited viewpoint, I was like, this is bullshit. Like this can't be good for anyone. It's not doing anything. We're just burning all this energy. And then Ethereum.
Computers, you mean the miners of Bitcoin miners?
Yeah, the Bitcoin miners. And then Ethereum moves from proof of work to proof of stake. And I was like stoked. I couldn't believe it. They solved the problem. And as I kept looking through the way that these architectures were being, pushed out, I kept coming back to the ideas that, these individual chains, yeah, they're cryptocurrencies, but they're also economic systems. And therefore you're almost building a new country on top of these things. And when you look to build a new country, the first thing you have to do is build the infrastructure. And so I looked at it again and I said, where do these cryptocurrencies, how do they lend themselves to a more secure, more distributed, more efficient physical infrastructure? And then I came all the way back to proof of work. And I realized that the proof of work scheme allows for massive amounts of flexibility in the electric grid. They're instantly dispatchable, these miners. You can turn them on and off instantly, and they always come back onto the next longest block, and they start hashing. If those were used as just strategic asset on the electric grid, then we have something that is capable of being flexible enough to handle all the rooftop solar, all the EVs, all of the wind power, because we can turn off and on something that can settle the supply and demand teeter-totter like a spring. It's holding it down. It's holding it in the middle.
So Mitch, take me back down to the basics now. So you're looking at Ethereum. Were you trading it on an exchange, or were you just doing all this investigation with a company, a vision in mind? And then all of a sudden, what happened?
I was trying to get rich, and I was trying to, trade shit coins. But all the while, I was also looking at, I'm blanking on his last name, but Balaji, he's a big BTCer. he started coming out with these network state ideas. He published a book about the network state. And so as I was trying to move through and make $1 million on a shit coin here and there, it's getting wrecked, trying to do some NFT drops, getting wrecked. This idea in the background that was being promoted about the network state where people are using this as currency. And I found that to be incredibly powerful.
Compelling.
And so I moved in that direction and ended up, falling out of line with all of the networks that I was on. I was on, Ethereum, Tezos, Solana, everything you can think of, trying to find a way to make these things work so that we could build a society that was based on better principles.
Okay. So, and why didn't you look at Bitcoin, or did you?
I did. I looked at BTC and I was like, this shit is broken,
Oh,
obviously. And that's really where it came from. It doesn't work.
so you
Everything.
did look at Bitcoin,
Oh,
BTC, and then you went to these other
absolutely.
projects.
Yeah, I was looking at all these other projects because the fundamental thought was that Bitcoin didn't work, and therefore we have to find something that does.
All right. So what happened next? Did you find anything that works, or and how did you do that? How did you find?
Well, I realized that
What not
you
realize, like,
know
were you like on the internet, or
oh
did
yeah
somebody call
oh
you, or what
well,
happened?
I read the Satoshi Affairs, and I think you have a similar experience to me,
Oh, yeah.
where where I read the Satoshi
Wait, no, wait,
Affairs,
you told me you heard about it because you
and
were following Richard Hart, right?
I was looking at, like I said, I was going through all these different chains, and Richard Hart comes out with Pulsechain, and I'm like, oh my god, it's the new Ethereum, it's Ethereum 2.0,
Did
it's
you
copy
did
and
you believe,
paste,
or
it's the
at the
perfect
time, that
scaling solution.
the hex is it called Hex? Is that
Hex.
what it's called, or Pulse?
Yeah, Hex and Pulse. I thought that when I was looking at BTC, I was like, wow, this Hex thing kind of makes sense. BTC is the gold standard, and that shit doesn't work. And, Hex on Pulse chain, that makes a lot of sense. I could get rich doing that.
What did you like
And
about
then,
that at the time?
well, I like theory. It's all about game theory. Hex has very, distinct. It's lined out, right? If you can read the rules to a game, then you can probably play it, and if you're savvy enough, you can maybe win it. Um, and so I liked that I understood the rules, and I looked at it, and I was following Richard Hart and all of his antics, and he
You
kept getting in this fight. He kept getting in fights with this guy named Craig Wright, and I was like, who's this guy? Who's this clown? And Richard Hart's going online, wrecking this guy, saying all this bad stuff, and I'm thinking, of course, this guy's got to be a fraud. So Richard Hart posts a link to a book called The Satoshi Affairs as a gotcha on Craig Wright, saying that everyone thinks you're a liar, and here's the proof. And he links the Satoshi Affairs. And so one night I read it, and I didn't freaking sleep for 3 days after that because I knew that Craig Wright was freaking Satoshi Nakamoto. I was like, oh my god, I found the thing that works, and it was
so
Bitcoin
that
all along.
after you read the Satoshi Affairs, you had that realization?
Oh yeah, I didn't sleep seriously 3 days straight. I was up researching, listening to what he had to say, looking at his blog posts, and just trying to figure out where I went wrong. And I mean, the fundamentals are I got friggin' psyoped, and so did everyone else. We got marketed to oblivion. They started pumping the price on this thing called Bitcoin, and I look at it and it's $60,000, and I'm thinking to myself, man, if I only had a couple of those. Meanwhile, the real stuff, the stuff that actually has the power to change the world, is trading at $40. And that's when I really started to get to work and learn the fundamentals of what this technology is and could be, and just get out of the rat race of trying
So
to
what
make
what
$1 billion
day
on bullshit.
what year and date was that you read the Satoshi Affairs and did this change?
That must have been September last year.
Oh, so it was very recent. We're talking
It was,
less than a
yeah,
year.
less than a year. I mean, this has been every day since, of me just trying to solve bigger and bigger problems with the greatest tool I've ever come across, which is Bitcoin,
And you
the Bitcoin system.
and then you made a decision to go out to London because we met there. So what was your inspiration for that?
Oh, I knew I just needed to talk to people smarter than me. You know, I'm sitting here in my mom's basement trying to get a company started. And there's only so much you can do thinking to yourself, I'm talking to my younger brother. I'm like, you get this stuff? I'm like looking like Charlie Day in in Always Sunny in Philadelphia, if you know that meme, where he's like staring at the whiteboard with all the strings. I'm like, I'm losing my mind thinking about this stuff. And I mean, I went out to London because I had to find people who knew. And man, I was so grateful to meet you and so many others that were dialed into this stuff and knew the possibilities that it could bring about. And I'm very grateful that you're having me on right now, and we can talk about it and get it out to as many people as we can reach.
All right. So tell me about what you think's going to happen next. Speculation. If you had a crystal ball, what's going on? We got a big court case where they said that Craig Wright is not Satoshi. You think he is Satoshi, you said, but the court said he was not Satoshi, and they might throw him in jail with another court. So what do you think's really going on? What is your speculation with, in game theory? What's happening right now, and where are we going?
I mean, one of the things that I keep thinking about is, why isn't Craig Wright dead? If he was, like, that's a little harsh, but like, the people who are going after him, they come from the tippy top. These guys that don't like him, they know what real Bitcoin can do. So why isn't he gone? Why can't I listen to a lecture by why, like, that's what I'm wondering. This isn't some whistleblower that we know they can get to. This is Craig Wright. Why is he still around? Why can they let him talk? And it's because they have to have Craig Wright. They have to have BSV. It is in their plan. This whole trial is in their plan. Everything is lined up so that when the time comes, they can flip the switch and build their new economy. And it's more efficient. It's easier to maintain. It's cheaper. There's a lot of benefits to
All right.
it,
So did
to
they?
using it.
Seems like you're saying that there was a plan here.
There's a
Are you saying
big
that they
plan.
they missed the boat on Bitcoin and now they're coming in later and they want to get it cheap, or what is the plan?
Well, it sounds like they they wanted to kill it. It seems like and that's why they neutered BTC. They tried to kill it. It didn't work. But at the same time, they knew that what it was capable of was necessary to bring about a larger change in the future. So the way I look at it, and the way that makes sense to me, is that they understand this, to the deepest level. They understand the implications of what Bitcoin can do. And so when they tried to kill it and they realized they couldn't, they decided that they needed to distract and build in silence, right? So they distracted with BTC, and then they're building in silence on BSV. And the other thing is that they don't want anyone to own any part of the network. And of course, we know that the only way to own and utilize the network is to own Bitcoins or the miners. But either way, you're still working to own Bitcoins. And so what they did, and I think this is brilliant, and I mean, no other way to say it, it's fucking genius, is that they built a gigantic Ponzi scheme called Tether to build the infrastructure that's necessary to host a Bitcoin network that has an astronomically high price. And they're doing it on a ghost chain. And while they subsidize that with these, funny money printed tether dollars, they're waiting in silence until the real work comes online, which is the Mandela upgrade. And then they get to
What's
flip the
that?
switch. I mean, that's Terranode, that's the overlay networks, that's the SPVs, the SPV wallets, and all of that tying in together to make this thing just massive and so efficient and
So,
infinitely useful. And
so,
they get
so
to
it seems like what
price
you're
you
saying
out.
is that when you went to London, you learned about all the other things that were going on in the background that people aren't aware of. You said Mandela upgrade. And what is that about? Scaling the Bitcoin chain?
It's about scaling.
And
It's about scaling.
it
All about
seems like it's probably pretty expensive. So to do that,
is oh yeah, it's very expensive. I mean, they're spending millions a month testing this thing. Um,
who do you think,
and
if you could name a man or two, who do you think's put writing that check? Not a company.
uh, I don't know. Probably. I mean, Calvin's obviously got a big stake in this, so there's money coming from him everywhere. But
Titan of blockchain.
it's big time. I mean, he's the man. He's holding things down. But it goes so much further than just Calvin. I mean, it's not just him, and even so,
Is he a part of this
this
game
is
theory somehow?
I think so. I haven't really done much research on Calvin, though. I'd like to talk to him. I think that he and I could actually do a lot of good together.
Well,
Um,
just a quick plug, man. The first few chapters of the new book, it's called the Satoshi book, man. Oh my gosh, it
mhm.
really goes. It's called A Hero Villain by Mark Egan. I just got to say, when it comes to books, I'm always reading law, I'm reading cases, I'm reading all. Comes to books, most of the time I'm bored. This guy is a great author, and he's got my attention. I'm on the edge of my chair, man, and he's talking all about Calvin and his meetings with Calvin. He's describing the room, and Calvin's dancing, and he's having a good time, and his emotions. He's describing what he's wearing. I could see it all in my head, man. It's just really cool being inside the meeting of him and Calvin. That's where I'm at in the book right now. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's not all him. It can't be. I mean, maybe it is. That'd be gangster, but
Now, somebody was selling a
that's
lot of big BTC over the last 6 months from the 2010 era. Did you know about that?
I saw the thumbnail from Satoshi on that. I hadn't got a chance
Yeah.
to watch the video yet.
Seems like they sell 50 BTC at a time, every time. Boom, boom, boom. A lot, many
Interesting.
times. Been going on for 6 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense to me that this was all a ploy to basically keep the real Bitcoin out of the hands of the people because at the end of the day,
But
well, I guess I should
we're,
say keeping the
we,
Satoshis out.
we got a cliffhanger here because I know you got to run soon. So, but where do you think this is going to go price wise? What if you could leave people with something here for a cliffhanger? What's going to happen?
I mean, the
You mentioned
price.
something to me about Saudi or the new princes and stuff. What was that about?
Well, yeah. I mean, I look at this, and this is coming from Craig Wright as well. This stuff is essential for commerce. I look at it like digital oil. It's the new oil. Data's the new oil. Where people are going to have to use this to do business, just like I have to put gas in my car to go to a meeting. It's essential. I have to go. I have to burn this stuff. I have to spend it.
Hmm.
And so whether or not it's the world reserve currency or the greatest asset on the planet, it's definitely going to be used. And the closest, akin I can say is that it's oil, it's gasoline. It makes the world run. It makes
The
the
future.
digital it makes the digital future run. And I don't know how to put a price on that because if you are one of the first people to stake your claim and you hold and you know what it's worth and then you design the business infrastructure around it, I mean, like I said, it's like you're the new Saudi prince, you're the new Rockefeller. You get to decide, you get to pick and choose. And I hope that we can design a world that's more open and less nasty, where we're not buying up patents so that we can keep emerging technology down so that we can maintain our status. But I feel that Bitcoin is the tool that can do that as well. open things up, keep people honest. And that's really comes back to the rules of the game. The Bitcoin white paper described the rules of the game. And if you stick to it, then you can play and you may even be able to win. And they're the most clear, they're the most concise, and I feel that they're the most morally right rules to any game I've ever wanted to play. And that's why I'm playing it.
You're not really out there right now. I know you're kind of working in the background. So is there anywhere people can find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, you can check out my website. It's metawatt.info. And it'll give you a little bit more information about my company MetaWatt and what that is and you know how we plan to use it. And then if you're interested in getting in contact with me, there's a form at the bottom, and you can shoot me an email.
MetaWatt.info. Nice.
Yep.
So it sounds like, well, what is the, I guess, you know, I know you got to go right now. So what is the risk in closing? I mean, what is the risk reward thing? Have you thought about that? You know, 6 months, in September, here you are, you have this 3-day bender, you can't sleep and you're now dedicating your time to this. What if it's all a waste of time? I mean, have you thought about that? And, you know, maybe you're just on a, whatever, one of those journeys that is a fairy tale or something. Is that a possibility?
No. I, I know that I know how that sounds. I just Bitcoin's the chosen one. It's there's no other option. That's where I see it. Like even if my company fails, I can't change what Bitcoin and no one can stop it. No one can kill it.
One other thing you mentioned, which before you go, was the training you had, and I'm super jealous and envious of your training. How can I get trained like you did, man? And maybe I can have other people do the same.
Yeah, so I just did all the academy courses. It really just lines out the
Start.
fundamentals.
You cut
And you
out. You
can
just did what?
you got me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I did the Bitcoin Academy courses and I went through them all. I'm very fortunate to be able to know Brendan, who is one of the designers of those courses, Brendan Lee with Elas, and they're top quality, and they're actually being redone now to reflect the new network upgrades, which is the Mandela upgrade, basically Terranode and the the accompanying technologies. And I highly recommend them. It got me as far as I am, and I'm sure that they'll come in handy in the future.
So, like for a person who's at a fifth grade level, you know, what could I do, and to try to just do that, man? Do I go on the website and I start
Yeah,
watching?
go on the site, and here's the most important thing that I learned from them is you go on the site and do the course that reads and explains every aspect of the Bitcoin white paper because those are the rules to the game. If you don't understand the rules, it's very hard to win. And you go through that and you will come out on the other side, you know, excited, excited to play. And I think that was the best course that I did with them. Um, and it's not very technical. Does a very good job of explaining, and I would
So
highly
start with the
recommend it.
course about the white paper, and then go from there.
Yep. I think that's the
That
very
is
best they
super
have.
helpful, man, because I get some of the principles in the white paper, but when I start seeing all that math and other things, I gloss over. So,
Yep.
you know,
It,
that would be cool if I could really, okay, thank you. I'm going to do that. I'm going to challenge myself, and I would like to challenge other people who want to do that. Maybe, who are at a fifth grade level like I am, then we can just start there.
it is the place to start. Those 8 pages. I believe it's 8 pages, I mean, which is insane. 8 pages to bring about this level. I mean, $2 trillion of economic growth, and most of it is not even associated with the real power of what those 8 pages represent, it's phenomenal, and it is vital information to really, soak in and understand.
I love it, Mitch. Well, this is great. So, will you come back? Let's do it. Let's leave it as a cliffhanger right there, and we'll go back into the game theory stuff next time. More about the strategy, what you're doing, and pick it up again. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate your time.
Awesome, Mitch. Well, thank you. And everybody, I'll put a link in there. If I can find that course, I'll find it. I'll put it in the description, and I'll put Mitch's website in the description as well. You could go there. All right. And Mitch, thank you very much. I
I
will.
got I got one little thing to say at the
One
very
last
end of
thing. Go
this.
ahead.
Yep. It's Proverbs 29:18. Um, where there is no vision, the people perish, but he who keepeth the law, happy is he. And I'll leave it there.
Proverbs 29:18. Well, thank you.
Thanks,
He
Gavin.
keeps the wall. See you at the top.